I opened my eyes, and the first thing I noticed was the soft pressing of a cushion underneath my spine. I looked around, and as I sat up, I saw that I was in a different part of the same library. I was lying on an old couch made of tan leather with stitching that was starting to look a little frayed. I could hear Marcus behind me muttering to himself in a language I couldn't identify. "You're awake," he stated, an observation. He walked around and sat next to me on the couch. "Yeah." I took a deep breath and looked at my kidnapper, noticing his brilliant emerald eyes. I hadn't noticed the rest of him before. His skin, which was a few shades darker than the couch, was enhanced by the long black coat he was wearing. He was no longer drenched from the rain, and he was smirking in a way that almost instantly got on my nerves. "Can you start at the beginning? I've seen this scenario 1,000 times in books. Just tell me what's going on and don't be cryptic." "Alright then, how much do you know about magic?" "Magic? As in witches and fairies?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. He nodded in clarification. "There's hundreds upon hundreds of different tellings of magic," I struggled as I spoke. "I think the only similarity is that you need to say something in some weird language that most of the time you're born with it. The weird language is Latin, and yes, you have to have a certain gene to use magic." He looked away from me, as if something out in the distance had grabbed his attention. "Latin?" I questioned. Again, he nodded. Latin was the language of the ancients, and human society has all but forgotten about it. He gave me a questioning look, his head tilted to one side, to see how I would react. I simply blinked and nodded. "Have your parents told you that you were adopted?" "Yes," I answered. "My parents had never kept it from me. There was no big reveal when I was younger, no large amount of drama. My adoption was old news." "Your birth parents were Nicholas and Tora Servanas, and both were members of the Royal Guard," Marcus informed me, speaking slowly and carefully. I guess he didn't want to scare me. "The Royal Guard? You mean for that woman from earlier?" "Precisely." "Okay, go on. Tora and Nicholas." "They had 2 daughters. Elizabeth is currently far from here, but you might run into her later. Logistics are hard to guess at right now." Paused for a moment as if he were checking for some reaction or comment. "The only clue we have as to who ordered their murders is that they believe the 2 of you would be dangerous later in life, which, all things considered, is not that far off." "Excuse me?" What your powers will be is about as predictable as your eye color. The odds of 2 parents with Earth affiliations are about as likely to have an air-affiliated child as 2 brown-eyed people having a blue-eyed child. Pretty unlikely. "Affiliation?" I asked. At one point it was referred to as your element, but the term was replaced with affiliation. Marcus paused for a minute. "Basically, it just refers to what type of magic you can use." "And what were their powers?" "Nicholas was a shapeshifter with light affiliation, whereas Tora was fire." "So it's likely I have fire with shapeshifting, I guess, trying to imagine what it would be like to have feathers or fur. There are your grandparents' powers to consider as well, but yes, no one would be surprised if you were." "Then what's the problem? Father's form was an eagle." "So?" I was starting to wonder what the point he was trying to get at. "Have you ever heard of a phoenix?" "Yeah, it's some firebird," I nodded, remembering Greek mythology. "It's a bit more than that. A phoenix is a mythical bird of prey. Legends say that they were reborn from their own ashes, and that people who see one are blessed and have good fortune. They are often a symbol for rebirth," Marcus explained. "Historically, phoenix shapeshifters are depicted as powerful, wise, and honorable people. 1,000 years ago, though, a phoenix shapeshifter helped start a war that lasted a century. Our people are still striving to be what we were all those years ago." "Oh, I understood what the issue was. Bird magic plus bird shapeshifter could equal a phoenix. Someone might come after me for being a phoenix since one started that war. And, as the stories go, phoenix shapeshifters of old would hunt down the tricksters, nowadays they're called demons, and they would free villages and towns of their grip. We suspect that might be part of the reason these demons have agreed to hunt you and Elizabeth down." "But how would they even know I might be a phoenix shapeshifter? It sounds like you're just guessing blindly." "We have a sacred place where parents take their kids to be tested with what powers they might have when they mature. You and your sister tested to be very likely to be phoenixes, but we won't know for certain until you come into your powers." So if I told them I don't plan on going demon hunting, would that help at all? No. Like I said, they were hired by someone. We just do not know who yet. And if we found that person, then they get arrested and you continue on with your life. Why do I hear an unless in there? Unless you decide you want to be a peacekeeper. Marcus was giving me a friendly look. It wasn't quite a smile, but it wasn't a smirk. It seemed mostly to be in his eyes as opposed to the rest of the face. Peacekeepers? I asked. What peace was he referring to? Sometimes the Council of Light and the Lords of Darkness have disagreements, and someone has to keep war breaking out in the middle of political meetings, and I'm guessing you're one of them. Thought about how two completely different titles the two groups had. How different are the politics? I asked out of curiosity. If a group called themselves Peacekeeper to help the two governments, then how often were these fights? And just what were the difference between the two? You are perceptive, he noted. The Kingdom of Light has the Queen and 6 council members. There are 7 dark territories with 7 rulers who we refer to as lords, who watch over each one. Thought for a moment. There is one more thing I want to know. Go ahead and ask. You mentioned the person trying to kill me has a lot of power, right? Yes, demons are difficult to work with and rarely work with weaklings. But they do as they're asked and won't stop hunting you until they have your head on a stick. What if it's just a leader who thinks he's doing the right thing? The more I thought on it, the more likely it seemed. They thought that by killing me, they were preventing a war that would explain why they were doing this. That's possible, and we have a list of suspects who match that description. When's the next meeting? I asked, as the plan started to form in my mind. A few days, he answered. He eyed me warily. He was no doubt trying to figure out what I was going with this. I have a plan. You do? Marcus asked. His eyebrow was raised as he looked confused. I'll act as peacekeeper, and we'll see if anyone is offended by my presence. And you think this might work? How, exactly? If the demons nearly busted my door down, then the one who hired them must have some idea of what I look like, right? He nodded in response, although he was still clearly confused. If they want to kill me so badly, then being in the same room as me might ruffle a feather or two, right? Realization dawned on his face. I do not like this, but I do see where you're going with it. You're going to look and act as if anyone is upset. Going to look and see if anyone is upset at your presence. Marcus nodded. That might work. Then you'll consider it. I'll have to talk with the captain and see what he thinks. He went to leave the room and he paused. Here, he turned around and tossed a book at me. It has a lot of old myths and legends and such. It might clear up some things you might have not thought to ask. I held the odd-looking leather-bound book in my hands. It was the size of 2 average school textbooks stacked on top of each other. It felt heavy, and the edges of the pages looked yellow with age. I opened it carefully, not wanting to clearly ruin the decades-old volume. It is hard to believe that we have been fighting each other for the past century. I hope the next generation grows up more accepting and understanding of each other so this does not happen again. They started this war, although they did not intend to. She was a phoenix shapeshifter, a creature extinct today, but then they were fairly common. Dozens of the fiery shifters protected the humans from the tricksters. He was a dragon shapeshifter, very rare, even then, and their kind is extinct now, too. Human knights, and what small semblance of reason they had a fondness for killing the shifters in their other form, although many of us wish they had killed that one. No one is sure who killed who, or even if they killed each other at all, but they were found dead on the border of what was then fire territory. It simply made sense that he attacked her when she left her home, possibly to go for a stroll near the volcano. The people of water were naturally infuriated at such a disaster. They demanded the return of their hero's body and a formal apology from fire. Water had a very high regard for the dragon shapeshifters, and honestly, who could blame them? They got the body, but not the apology. Tensions quickly rose and stayed high between the two nations for a great while until one of the water princesses married a lord of dark. When fire and light signed a treaty, ice, earth, and air pleaded the ancestors for a slaughter not to come. The prayers weren't answered. and the world erupted in war. The ice tribes of the north were set ablaze, and the people were slaughtered, resulting in not a single man, woman, or child being able to use the mysterious power of ice. Fire and air were swallowed by light, while earth and water were swallowed by dark. Now instead of 7 kingdoms, 2 remain. Thousands of bloodlines were lost to the century of fighting. Though some tensions between both nations remain, in the memory and scars of war will never fade, will forever haunt the mind of magic. Plead to all my descendants in the future to learn from this passage. The fight and destruction is over, but is there enough left for us to rebuild? I will stay with my human king for now and do what I can for my people on both sides. Merlin, the Day of Peace. Well, that made what Marcus told me even more sense. That made what Marcus had told me make more sense. Sounded like a world war based in magic. 7 kingdoms clashing until only 2 remained. Humans had a large capacity for war, but nothing that bad. Even in the case of World War II, it only lasted a handful of years and millions died. How many were killed in the fighting? What exactly was lost in the fighting? I continued to look through the old book, and there were several first-hand accounts of everything from the witch hunts in Europe to the Salem witch trials in the U.S. There was even one from when Senator McCarthy was on his communist manhunt. Even after all this time, magic was still trying to rebuild its culture. The main thing stopping them was human expansion and their willingness to kill them if they came out of hiding. Even now they were living in fear. I touched the pages gently. Part of me was feeling it. The fear, the worry, the pain of having to run from your neighbor. My heart ached for these people, even though they were dead. It was like reading the diary of a Jewish person who was living in Germany during the Holocaust. My hands started to shake, and I took a deep breath to steady myself.